Pope Francis has slammed the addiction to technology, consumerism, and a flurry of modern trends. And in his latest memo to the world, he painted climate change doomsday scenarios and a prediction that warned against humanity's, quote, reckless behavior that has pushed the world to the breaking point. It not only broke the interwebs, but has had politicians of all kinds in a frenzy. Joining me now is Father Matt Malone, editor-in-chief at American Magazine. And thank you so much for being here, Father.
My pleasure.
Where to begin on this? I mean, there's so much here. It's quite remarkable, but let's just sort of start off in a broad sense. Extremely detailed for an encyclical, about 187 pages,
right.
Well thought out, and not only did the Pope make a case for climate change, saying that it was created by man, to his knowledge, also a real case against modern-day consumerism, talking about this global consumerism, the ecological debt. Just sort of give us a broad sense of what the Pope was trying to accomplish here.
I think he's trying to change the conversation, I mean, first and foremost, and really prompt change. I mean, the timing here anticipates his visit to the United States in September and the Paris talks that are coming up in the autumn. You know, to me, it read like, particularly the account of what previous popes had said before him, like a series of escalating interventions in the life of an addict. Right, and he's really trying to get the attention of the world and saying, you know, this addictive consumerism that we have is a vital threat to the future of the planet, because it prevents us from actually acting as a community to arrest this trend.
And what I found was smart about that strategy is that if you go off and you talk about consumerism, is that that resonates with some people, but some people are kind of eh. If you tie that to climate change, though, climate change is something that a lot of people are very passionate about. Right. And there's a lot of pre-existing groups that try to move on that. And you see the polling, most Americans believe it is in fact occurring, it's happening. They want to take action on that. It's sort of wise for the Pope to marry the two of them in his encyclical, because then it puts that in front of people who ordinarily may have missed that side of the message.
I think that that's right. And he really connected the dots here, right? He took the theological, he took the philosophical, he took the scriptural, and he took all of the resources of the Catholic tradition, applied it to this problem, and then also addressed the practical implications and, you know, what it is that we should be talking about at a public policy level. And you're right. I mean, it could have a very destabilizing effect on some people who kind of have an ideological commitment around these issues. You know, 1/3 of GOP voters deny that there's human activity that leads to this climate change trend. Another third are unsure about it. That's 2/3 of GOP voters who are in denial of some form about what most scientists regard as an objective reality. And the Pope has clearly sided with the scientists on this.
And on that point, what I find remarkable about this Pope is that you do see the charge of cafeteria Catholicism from amongst the politicians, because you have a lot of liberals that will immediately flock to him and be like, oh, he's the greatest, like, we're pushing this, pushing this, pushing this. Right. And you have a lot of conservatives that say, oh, he's changed the debate, but you know what, he's right there with us on the social issues. Talk about a little bit the political ramifications of what he did yesterday, because it puts a lot of Republican candidates in a difficult spot. Jeb Bush, someone who's worn his Catholicism on his sleeve. Sure. He's previously, though, had run-ups regarding the death penalty and said, well, I don't take my policy from my bishops on every single issue. He said certainly he was not going to take it economically regarding the assault on the free market, as some people characterized the Pope's words yesterday. But he did put some politicians in a box yesterday by being so outspoken on climate change.
Yeah, and he also challenged the left. You talked a bit about abortion. He talked about how our commitment to the care of the planet is rooted in our commitment to life as Catholic Christians. But you're right. I mean, we saw a lot of people over the last couple of days who have been calling for a greater role of faith and religion in public life, saying, why is the Pope bringing faith into public life in this way?
Yeah, right.
And
it's odd.
Right.
Yeah.
You'd think that this would be exactly what we've all been looking for, right? And, you know, I mean, he has made a commitment to putting the church's money where its mouth is, right? I mean, and this is a Pope who follows up pronouncement with action. That's why the reflection in the encyclical was followed by a consideration of the practical implications, right? When he announced a year of mercy for the Catholic Church, he followed it up immediately with a recognition of the Armenian genocide, right? He doesn't just talk about accountability for bishops, he puts in place juridical structures to hold them accountable for their treatment.
He's cleaning house.
Yeah, he is, and he follows his words with actions.
I was struck to the degree that he went after the free market, and he was even tweeting is that a free market does not guarantee dignity, it does not guarantee love and charity and hope. And I'm interested to see what do you believe is the root cause of that. Is a lot of that because of these allegations that the Vatican was holding up to too much monies, that there was a sense that the monies gotten by the Vatican were not going to the right places? Is it a mix of just a political statement or also trying to shed a situation that he found that was problematic?
I think it's a little of both. But his, he came of age and ministered in the developing world and in very, very poor areas, right? So this also comes from his own experience as a pastor,
right.
And as a person who grew up in South America. And so this is a deeply felt commitment on his part. But the critique of capitalism is not, it's not new in Catholicism. I mean, we've had it
right.
since the late 19th century, right? And, all of his predecessors, St. John Paul II, Pope Benedict, all had leveled a critique of how capitalism is expressed. But that should not be interpreted as a critique of capitalism as a system, right? Because the church doesn't have ideological commitments to the way we organize our economy. But he does have a critique of how capitalism is lived out in this time and in this place.
One term that he used was this ecological divide of the North versus the South, and he's referring to hemispheres. And when you think about where we are politically, is you definitely have, especially through the context of the UN, I mean, there's first world countries and there's third world countries, and there's no one really in between anymore. It's pretty a stark difference.
Right.
And the Pope is sort of calling out those wealthier countries and sort of saying, look, and again, in the context of climate change, the more you consume, the more you take, it hurts these other countries, especially in the southern hemisphere.
Right.
Why was that so important for him to call out?
Because he lives a commitment that is a preferential option for the poor, right, and marginalized. That's what he's been talking about from the first moment that he appeared on the balcony as Pope. I mean, he is committed to making sure that the church, not only in its expressions of faith, but in its interventions in public life, takes the side of the marginalized and the disempowered, right, and addresses their concerns. The last thing that somebody said to him as he went into the room to put on the robes of the Pope was, "Don't forget the poor."
Right.
And that is what made him choose the name of Francis.
And lastly, we have the visit coming in September. This obviously, as you mentioned at the beginning, sort of set the stage for that. Should we expect more of this message when he comes? What do you think?
I think so. I think it'll probably be.
He's addressing Congress. The first Pope to ever do that.
Yes, he is. And there's a reason why his predecessors didn't really address national assemblies. They would deal with the head of state, but not the National Assembly. And because it's kind of a high wire act, right?
Sure.
I mean, he's going to be standing there in front of two American Catholics who have very different views.
Right. I can't wait for that picture.
Yeah, exactly. Biden, Boehner, and the Pope, right? I mean, it's going to be a pretty incredible sight. I think we can expect more of this message. But he also, he's never been to the United States before. And he doesn't know a whole lot about the United States, and he'd be the first person to tell you that. And so he comes also to learn and to listen, and I think that'll be a part of the message as well.
Fascinating. Father Malone of American Magazine, thank you so much for being on the show.
All right.
Appreciate it. Great to see you.